I do not want to introduce, I think all you know who is sitting just in front of you. His Holiness Radhanath Swami, preaching the glories of the holy name all over the world. And please take this opportunity tonight for hearing his class. Let us all welcome in the traditional way by chanting 3 times Hari Bol for Maharaj. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj ki!
The first one was much better. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Om Mokyan Timidam Dasya Gyananjanat Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatharmitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Mevacha Parijana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Aswati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. You all look so beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. I am very grateful for this chance Srila Prabhupada has given us. So many chances. Whatever our shortcomings or disqualifications, He's eternally giving us a chance to associate with devotees, to render some service, to chant the holy names, and ultimately to find the joy of loving Krishna. There is no disqualification in all of creation that can withstand the grace of a Vaishnava. If at any time we open our hearts with humility to receive it. Dinahina yata chilo harinam udharilo tara sakshi jagai madhai. Narottam Das Thakur gives this as an example. That the power of Krishna's name is so great that if we chant with sincerity, under the guidance and the shelter of the grace of devotees, we can become perfect and pure. And the example is Jagai and Madhai. The scriptures take examples that are so extreme, just to encourage us and give us a hope that it's not impossible. I was recently reading from the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and Srila Prabhupada in one purport writes, what a Vaishnava is. Vaishnava means a true devotee of the Lord. Now, in different places, Srila Prabhupada explains different qualities of Vaishnava. Some places he says a Vaishnava is one who has no envy. One who is genuinely a well-wisher of everyone. Envy that was the best part of the class. We could see anything as a disturbance or as a blessing. Thank you, thank you. I remember one temple president of a temple. There was a large gathering of devotees. I was giving a class, and he said very strongly, everyone turn off your cell phones. And then about 2 minutes later, as I was speaking, a cell phone was ringing really, really loud, and everyone was looking around thinking the president is really going to be angry at whoever this person is. And it was the temple president. That was wonderful. If it was anyone else, you wouldn't all be laughing, even so many years later. Krishna tells Arjuna in the Gita that you can understand this message because you have no envy. What is envy? All of these qualities are emerging from the ahankar, from the false ego. When we want to be the enjoyer, controller, when we want to be thinking that I am the doer, or we think that other people are the doer, And when someone does something better than us, we become envious or depressed. If someone does something less than us, we become arrogant, considering I am superior. And it makes us feel good. It's a very lamentable state. Anandamayo vyashat. We are all looking for pleasure. It is our nature. Because the soul is Satchit Ananda, it is eternal, full of knowledge and full of pleasure. And that pleasure is in loving Krishna. And realizing that love in everyone and every situation. Because everything ultimately is connected to Krishna. But when we forget that, we have to find a substitute for that pleasure that we have turned our attention away from. And that search for pleasure so much corrupts us due to this false ego. We find pleasure being better than others. Whatever we may do, whether we're beautiful or strong or intelligent, or whether we have one skill or another skill, we feel pleasure when I do it better than someone else, when I'm getting more credit than someone else, when I'm getting more attention than somebody else. But however much we get can never satisfy us. No comment. I have many stories about cell phones, but because however much we succeed in being better than someone, we become infatuated by that pleasure. And to that degree, when it's frustrated, we suffer. Either we become depressed, I'm useless, I'm worthless, I'm a fool. Now, humble people say the same thing. But when they say it, it's completely different. Because when a humble person says that, a devotee is seeing the greatness of Krishna, because always remembering Krishna, and takes the ultimate pleasure in seeing Krishna's greatness, Krishna's beauty, Krishna's strength, Krishna's fame, Krishna's knowledge, Krishna's compassion. And when we put a candle before the sun, a enlightened person thinks, my pleasure is in the light of the sun. I'm insignificant, but my pleasure is there. So that brings us joy to think ourselves small. But when we're not humble, when we're egoistic, when our ego is crushed, dissatisfied, or simply not fulfilled, it's painful. And feeling ourselves worthless is miserable. It's depressing. Or even worse, it makes us envious. And therefore, the tendency to become competitive and somehow or other tear down somebody who's doing something better than me, by one way or another. And the ego can justify anything, and even make us believe it. But Srila Prabhupada explains the Vaishnava is not envious. And in this particular purport in the 7th canto, he writes that a Vaishnava tries to do the very best that he or she could do, and deeply appreciates what everyone else is doing. Doesn't that sound simple? If we could just do that, we could be totally peaceful. We could be really happy. Just be grateful for the chance to serve. A grateful heart really cannot be an envious heart. A grateful heart is a humble heart. I get to serve, and I just try my best. And whatever it may be, I'm trying my best. And if somebody else is not doing as much as me, I really appreciate them. And Prabhupada says, and I even think that they're doing better than me. Because we see the good in them. Prabhupada says, this is Vaikuntha, where everyone is just trying to serve the best they can and totally happy. And completely appreciate whatever service anyone else is doing, whether it's bigger or smaller. Because big and small is a material conception. Devotional service is on the level of devotion. We all know the story of Hanuman and this and spider or squirrel, some say. But let us say spider. Little spider, not those big poisonous spiders. This little spider. Today in the car I was talking about spiders. When I was a little boy, I was afraid of spiders. I was really afraid of spiders. In fact, some of these impressions are ingrained in my mind. I remember in the corner of my bedroom there was a spider about this big, with his legs. And I just couldn't believe a spider's in the room that I sleep. So I remember I ran out of my room and locked the door from outside. I ran down to the kitchen. My mother was cooking. And I said, Mother, there's a spider in my room. Take it out, take it out. And she said, why are you so afraid? And I said, no, I can't. There's a spider in my room. I can't go in there. So she went up with a little piece of paper and threw him out the window or something like that. And I remember my mother took me to one holy person, and he said, what is your name? I said, Richard. He said, oh, Richard the Lionhearted. That's what this holy person said. And I was thinking, God, that's really nice. And my mother looked at him and said, not at all. Still hurts. Got praised, he just put me like that. For those of you who may have read this book, The Journey Home, when I was living in Himalayas, in Himachal Pradesh at the time, I don't know what it's called now because the states of India are always changing. I was living near Dharamshala, on a mountain in a cave. It's a real simple cave. Among caves, maybe 2 stars. Really, sadhus evaluate caves. And it was just a very small cave, and I was laying on the rocks, and I just had a candle. And one candle, I had to make it last, because I only had one. So I remember I was laying, and the walls to the cave were just a few inches from my face. The biggest, most ferocious spider I ever saw in my life was crawling across the wall. And his legs were really long, and his body was extremely big, and he had long hairs. At least that's what it looked like to me. Candlelight. And each of his legs were moving one at a time, very like... And he was literally this far from my face, coming like this. And then there was a little hole about this deep, right here, and he just went right into it. And I immediately thought of that incident in my bedroom. I was only 20 at this time. And I remember thinking that if I want to become enlightened, I have to see everyone with equal vision. That's what I read in Bhagavad Gita. I mean, somehow or other, he's a living being. And this is his home. And I'm a living being, and right now this is my home. And he's probably lived here longer than me. He's my roommate. And I remember the lesson I learned from Kailash Baba. Kailash Baba was a sadhu in Himalayas, I knew. One day when I was in a place called Dev Prayag, I went early morning for the first time to bathe in the confluence of the Alaknanda and Bhagirath rivers. Because it was dark, it was probably 4:30 in the morning. It was very dark. I came down from the cave I was living in, and I couldn't see the current. I just saw the river. But the current was so fast that I don't think anybody could live by being swept away by that current. It was rushing so fast, and there were rocks ahead of it in the river. And the only way people can bathe there at that time of the year is you have to hold on to chains. There's these big chains that are nailed to rocks, and you hold on and you bathe like this. I was going for a purificatory bath, and I entered. All of a sudden, it just swept me off my feet, and I was just about to be rushing down the current really fast, and I couldn't see anything. And I thought, this is the end. Suddenly, this vice grip of something grabbed my arm and pulled me out. And he picked me up and threw me on the bank of the river, and then put his hand on my head and started chanting protective mantras. That was Kailash Baba. So I stayed with him for some time, and he wanted to teach me how to survive in the jungle. He showed me which herbs I could eat, and which leaves and fruits, which I shouldn't. Even certain barks of trees, he taught me how you can eat it. Berries. And he taught me how to study what monkeys eat, to understand what I can eat. So many tricks. But most importantly, he taught me how to live in a place where there happened to be leopards and panthers and wild elephants, cobras, vipers, scorpions, mosquitoes, and lots of spiders. He taught me that some of these animals, you have no power against them. They can kill you. A poison snake, a leopard. What chance do you have? He said, in order to live in the jungle, you have to see the divinity in them and appreciate it. If you think you are better than them, they are going to kill you. That's the law of living in the jungle. Because humans have very little rights without weapons. If you think that you are superior to them, they will kill you. And if you think, if you feel fear toward them, they will recognize that fear and attack you. So you have to be fearless, and you have to be humble, and offer them all respect. Amani namanatena, to offer all respect to others. And how to offer respect to animals? To see that the life force within them, the Atma, is part of God, spiritual and sacred. To recognize and appreciate the sacredness of life wherever it is, in whatever form it may be encased within. Now in college you learn lessons, but then you think, I have time to understand these things before I actually get into the job market or whatever. But in this course, it was a crash course. Because as he's speaking to me, there's cobras, and there's leopards, and there's elephants. And the amazing thing is, in his association, I could actually feel fearless. And I can actually feel the sacredness in them. It's just the power of association. But here I was, all alone, in a cave, with this gigantic, ferocious, to me, it looked like a man-eating spider. And he's 6 inches from my face. And as I was thinking like that, the candle burned out. It was absolutely pitch dark. And I was wondering if the spider was going to come out of that little hole. I was thinking, God must have sent this spider. In those days, I didn't know who Krishna was. And I thought God must have sent this spider because as long as that fear of my childhood remains in my heart, I'm not really going to be enlightened. I have to transcend it. And I realized, because you know the way the mind is? How many of you have this experience of the way the mind is? I recently read a scientific, psychological study that the average human being has 60,000 separate thoughts every day. And sometimes they contradict each other. And sometimes they're very reactionary to situations. So it was pitch dark, and I realized I can't overcome this fear. But then I just felt, if I just see this as God's will, that God sent this spider to help me to become spiritually advanced, then I can actually like this spider. And you know, for the next couple of weeks, we lived as roommates. He would just crawl all around the cave. You know, every now and then I'd see him start eating insects. Just like eating. Just inches away from me. And I was thinking, yeah, I'm eating in those days I was eating something called samba, which is a Tibetan Buddhist dry barley that you mix with water. It didn't taste so good, but it lasts forever. And it doesn't cost anything. Actually, it tasted very good. So I'm eating this, and he's eating his food. And we became roommates. And after some time, I realized I've never had a roommate that I got along so good with. We never had a single disagreement. We never had a single argument or fight. He just did his thing and I did my thing, and I learned to love that spider, just like a pet. And in my own, maybe it was a sentimental way, but I was thinking that spider loves me too. Sometimes at the beginning when he was going like this, I was thinking he was about to attack me. But then later on he did the same thing and I was thinking he's waving to me. So we could see the same thing in either situation. But back to Hanuman. He was building the bridge from Rameshwaram to Sri Lanka. And there was that spider. He was kicking grains of sand. And Hanuman, by the grace of Ram, recognized, although I'm carrying mountain peaks that weigh thousands of tons and putting them for the bridge, and this spider is just taking one grain of sand at a time and putting it. We're doing exactly the same thing, because the spider's doing the best he can, and I'm doing the best I can. And what makes anything successful? Samsadir Haritosha. How we're pleasing Krishna. If Krishna's pleased with the sincerity and the honesty of our efforts, that is success from a spiritual perception. And that's all that really matters. And Prabhupada explains, Krishna doesn't see what we do. He sees our intention. He sees our sincerity. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada again and again, he would plead with us, just take this Krishna consciousness sincerely. Don't be arrogant. Don't be depressed. Don't be envious. Just try your best. And deeply from the heart, appreciate everyone else who's trying, according to their own capacity. In this passage of the Bhagavatam, little Prahlad sits on the lap of his father, Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu, so happy to have his boy on his lap. Prahlad just offered his prostrated obeisances, bowing down, folded hands, honoring and respecting his father, sitting on the throne. His father puts him on his lap, embraces him with tears of fatherly affection. And what do you say to a little boy? You can't ask high philosophical questions. He just asked the simplest question to this 5-year-old child, just to talk to him. Yes? Sometimes, it's not what you say, it's that you just say something. It's an exchange of affection. That's what satisfies the heart, is the exchange of affection. So he said to little Prahlad, what's the best thing you learned in school? And he was expecting something like political science. The little Prahlad, with a little smile on his face, very humbly but with tremendous conviction, he responded, Tat sadhu manye suravaryadehinam sadasamad vignatiyam asat yadvatmapatam grihamanda. He said, my dear father, he actually said, he praised his father by saying, my dear father, O best of the asuras, best of the demons. Now, if someone called you that, it would be an insult. But for Hiranyakashipu, that was the ultimate compliment. He was proud of being the best of the demons. So first Prahlad opened his heart up by praising him, according to time, place, person. And he says, for someone like you, who are so much attached to sensual enjoyment and false ego and selfishness, and your whole family life is just based around this egoness and selfishness, you're just laying in a deep, dark well where there is no water, but only suffering, and even if you cry out, no one will hear you. Father was not expecting that. He called for Prahlad's teacher, Shandanamarka, sons of Shukracharya, and said, who is teaching my son this deviant philosophy? This is the philosophy of a devotee, of Vishnu. And Vishnu is the killer of my brother, Hiranyaksha. He is my enemy. My son is being influenced by my enemy. Take him back to school, find out who has done this, and teach him properly. So little Prahlad was so respectful to everyone, but he was truthful. This balance is incredible. Amani namanadena. He spoke the truth, but with love, with compassion, and with respect. There's a place in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat where Vrindavan Das Thakur says, anyone who criticizes Lord Nityananda, I kick him in the face with my foot. And that sounds pretty angry, doesn't it? But a great saint explained, actually he's being very respectful to those people. Because he's thinking that if he kicks them, then Nityananda is going to really shower his mercy on them and deliver them. See? So little Prahlad went back to the school, and the teachers, they were so angry with him. How is it that you are being influenced by our enemies? Where did you learn this from? And little Prahlad, all honor and respect to his teachers, he said, I cannot see from the perspective of enemies and friends. This whole conception is what is spoiling the entire world. I see that everyone is part and parcel of Krishna, acting in various ways. I may or not like the ways, but we hate the disease, not the diseased. And Srila Prabhupada quotes from Bhagavad Gita in this context. Vidyavanaya sampane brahmani gavihastini suni chaiva swapaki cha pandita samadashya. That a humble sage who's endowed with real knowledge sees every living being with equal vision. Whether one is a learned Brahmin, a priest, or whether one is male or female, black, white, red, yellow, brown, in color, whether one's from a rich family or a poor family, educated, uneducated, whether one's from the east or the west, whether one's in the parliament or whether one's in prison, whether one's a human or an elephant or a cow or a dog or a spider. Whatever it may be. Mamai vamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Every living being is a part of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada explains that when we understand that every living being is a part of Krishna, we understand unity in diversity. that we are all individual. But at the same time, there was oneness among all of us. In essence, we're of the same substance. We're all servants of Krishna. And we see that the Paramatma, Krishna himself, is within the heart of every living being. This consciousness, Lord Chaitanya explains, amanina manadena, to offer all respect to others. And how is it possible that we don't need respect for ourselves? It means don't expect respect for yourself, but offer it all to others. How can we be happy that way? When we actually find happiness in respecting others, there's so much joy in that, we absolutely don't need any for ourselves. If we really feel this desperate need to be respected, it's very likely because we just haven't learned how to find joy in respecting others. Especially respecting Krishna. And when we respect Krishna, we understand that Krishna is in everyone. Krishna is the strength of the strong, the intelligence of the intelligence, the ability in people. So when we see somebody doing something wonderful, we understand it's Krishna through this person. And we respect, we honor, we love. That's happiness. Then when people, then Krishna, this is paramdrastvani vartate, this is the higher taste. And when we experience this higher taste of a service attitude, a devotional attitude, where we actually taste Krishna, then the Gita tells honor, dishonor, happiness, distress, pleasure, pain, health, disease, all these dualities, they're always coming and going. Matra sparashasta konteya sitosna sukha dukkata agamapayano nityas tamsta dikshasva bharata. The non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the summer and winter seasons. They're always changing. Now it's kind of winter here, but you know for sure that winter's going to end and summer's going to come. Yes? But when summer